Hi, I'm Michelle Blue. I'm a millennial entrepreneur and started a business just 2 weeks after graduating college. It's my life and I don't even know. Okay, each week I'm interviewing an entrepreneur, getting a real look at their stories.
The reason why it was challenging because there is no set path for entrepreneurship.
At the lessons, the sacrifices along their journey.
And leadership is hard, and you have to live at home, and entrepreneurship is not easy.
So for the fellow entrepreneur, hopeful entrepreneur, or whatever path you decided to take in life, just know that the beauty lies within the journey.
Watching?
The journey.
The journey. Alright, I'm going to be watching. Alright.
Remind me of exactly, do you remember? So Rufin, we met, I guess like a couple years ago, 3 years ago now, right? We were at a co-working space, struck up conversation, and then found out that you were my graphic designer's brother, right? And obviously I love Noemie. She is my life. She is my creative director, the only reason why I look somewhat cool. But obviously I realized like the coolness kind of just runs in the family, right? So somewhat of an Atlanta socialite, like on the party scene.
I guess.
I remember like the first event I heard of, it was like, I guess an all-white party, am I wrong?
Yep, it was this dinner started out in Paris called Dîner en Blanc.
Yeah.
And they haven't been to Atlanta. So I reached out to their founders and just told them that it needs to come here to Atlanta. And it took a whole year of a process to even get them to agree to do it, get the city involved and all that. And now I think this is about to be their fourth year.
Fourth year, and you have like thousands of people
Yeah.
that come out to this event, and it's like you bring your own. I'm like really don't know. You bring your own food.
It's a picnic. It's essentially a picnic where you don't know the location.
Yeah.
You ride a shuttle bus the day of to an undisclosed location, and you bring your own food, bring your own. You could coordinate with your friends and like essentially have a road tables and just kind of join in the experience.
Super cool.
Yeah, so it's cool. And then it's held at a public landmark.
Okay.
So just the background scene and the background shots is really beautiful. So.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So this is what you're known for. You're known for like throwing these awesome events and experiences, right? So how did that even start? Like when did you start doing that?
Well, I grew up with, my parents were very strict, coming from the Congo, we grew up in a family that was very strict. So I didn't really get a chance to have a traditional high school experience. It was more so go to school, come home, chill, sometimes hung out with friends. So when I got to college, like it really just...
You was like, oh, I'm about to go for it all the way.
I really started to discover myself.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I realized is that, I really had a creative side to me that I hadn't tapped into before that.
Yeah.
So, that just kind of led into really a desire to bring people together and party is a good way to do that.
Yeah.
So from freshman year in the dorms to...
It was the life of the party.
Yeah, we just started having parties in our dorm room and the whole hallway is packed and transition when we moved off campus and things like that. So it's a gradual growth, and started doing concerts, joined the University Union, which is responsible for bringing the entertainers. And my first year I booked Ludacris, T.I., Lil Jon, and this is when they first were starting out. So just having the ability to discover new talent was something that was cool to do, and just kind of grew from there.
So super awesome that you're able to do that, and obviously you were able to grow that into a business, right? So that's what you have with the cool kids and with Popular is really just kind of, like you said, bringing people together.
Right.
So you were in college, you went to UGA.
Right.
But you didn't graduate from UGA.
No, I did not. So funny story. My last year in college, so my major was computer science.
Yeah.
So going into it, I really wanted to do marketing. I knew that was something I was passionate, and then again, clashing with my parents, and they're like, no, it's got to be a certain type of job to, to get stability. So I was coding in high school before coding was a cool thing to do. So
I didn't know that.
yeah, I was coding back in high school. Like it was a class of maybe like 4 of us.
Yeah.
So I started coding in my junior year of high school, and decided to do computer science as a major, and got to my senior year, like I was fourth year student, and realized like in my 4th year, like I had a flashlight of like myself like 5 years after that.
Yeah.
And I felt like I would get to a place of comfort and not really push myself to like go for like dreams that I really want to go after. So it just didn't feel right.
Yeah.
Like for whatever reason at the time, I just felt like me like closing and finishing my degree just like wouldn't have been the right decision for me. And I don't know how I came to that logic, but essentially did that. And
I love that you listened to yourself.
yeah, it was hard. It was very hard because my other sister, she was like a freshman that year, freshman to sophomore, and I remember she visited me one day and just could tell that I just wasn't myself, and she was like, "What's going on?" And I'm just like, I don't know, I'm not really feeling like what I'm dealing with in terms of school and stuff like that. And so funny enough, while that was happening, I had started an organization called Georgia Days. So it was literally.
Hold on. You helped start Georgia Days?
Yeah, it was my.
Who knew?
Came up with that idea.
I didn't even know that.
Senior year in college. Like at the time, affirmative action was ending when Bush was in office, and we, black men at UGA is a very low number. I think it was like 1.9%.
Yeah.
I remember we used to wear badges with 1.9%, just as a sign of solidarity and things like that. So people were minorities were really like upset at just the low numbers. And one day I just sat down, wrote down some ideas, brainstormed, and ran it by a friend of mine, Kyle, who I was very close with. And I said, hey, why don't we just like recruit high school, students ourselves?
Yeah.
And he said, let's do it. What do we have to do? And we went to every, organization, student organization on campus, and they all told us no. And, and we just kept pushing. We said, you know what, let's just have a meeting ourselves. And we held a meeting at Reed Hall, I think. And, and we invited maybe like 20 students, and 150 students showed up.
Oh, wow. So there was a need, like there was genuine interest around
Genuine interest, a need for it, an excitement behind it. And then the next day, like the housing department called us and said, we're going to support y'all.
Awesome.
And it was a trickle down effect. The food department called after that. And like literally within 7 days, like we're all over the news, like from New York Times to LA Times to AJC. It was literally in a week time period. Like I'm not even exaggerating.
What a blow up.
Yeah, so it was a crazy experience, and I think it was the first time I realized my abilities to create something from scratch. Like
to lead.
Yeah, exactly. And doing parties was definitely like something creative for me, but starting this organization was really like, okay, I saw a problem and a need, and I just took, just put it to myself to just go after it, solve it, and figure out a solution behind it. So now I think it's in its 11th year.
I mean, it was still going strong when I was in school.
Yeah.
I mean, not to say that much, but I know like there's a following around Georgia Days. There are people that are like excited to be a part of Georgia
Absolutely.
Days. Whether it's the leaders that are hosting the kids, the high school students, like it's completely, a thing.
And it's amazing, it's just a blessing. It's become an official, UGA organization.
Yeah.
I think they sent me some stats last year, and this is an interesting stat. Last year was actually the first year ever that African American women had the highest GPA at Georgia.
What?
And
That's
they,
awesome.
and they attribute a lot of that to Georgia Days really helping influence and bringing more minorities. So like, it just, a lot of good things has happened with that organization.
I think that instilled a lot of confidence for you.
Absolutely.
Sure.
I mean, and from a number standpoint, the other stat that they shared was that it's generated $40 million for the school.
Wow.
And so looking back on it, I was kind of like, wow, I can't believe like I came up with an idea that could make, because you talk about creating something that could generate a certain amount of revenue.
Right.
And, so the confidence really came in terms of seeing, that you could really make something happen if you just have the desire, passion for it, you know.
Yeah,
And,
I love that.
you know, so yeah, it was really, to me, like, you know, I didn't finish school, but I felt like that was like my senior year, like, dissertation. Like, here's my statement that I
Right, that
want to
was
make.
your proof, you know, like for yourself. And I think a lot of times there's a lot of people who don't necessarily fit into the constructs of school, right? But you made it your own, which is great. And so you were in school, you were 4.5 years in, and then
moved back with my parents.
Okay, please tell me how that worked, right? Because I mean, most parents are not elated about that, but I understand culturally there's a difference, right?
Absolutely.
Being a first-generation immigrant, like they come over and the dream, the American dream, and a lot of times people only think like it's a doctor or a lawyer, like you have to go through those like, you know, for sure paths of success and like making money. So how did your parents take entrepreneurship, like throwing parties, like that's like fun?
They still don't get it. They still don't know what I do. I mean, they try to understand, but at the time, I mean, it was hard. Part of the reason why it was challenging because there is no set path for entrepreneurship, and there wasn't really that many classes around entrepreneurship. Like I think there's been since then a huge surge around the push of entrepreneurship in a lot of ways. But, you know, I remember, I mean, I don't even think there was a major around it.
No.
You know, like there wasn't a music business program, which I had a lot of interest in. You know, so all the things that I really wanted to do, like we didn't have the resources and outlets, and I didn't really have any type of mentors for it. So, you know, dealing with my parents, it was hard for me to explain why I decided to do what I wanted to do, what was the path that I wanted to take, and what are some examples, like proof of concept that this actually can happen, you know. And they've always have had the mentality that, you know, go to school, get a job, etc. So that experience was very challenging, just from a clash and just perspective, and not only generation wise, but also culturally, you know. And, you know, I think I just had to stick to my gut instinct, you know, and just what continued to lead me to do certain moves in my life. And even sometimes it means that you're not going to agree with the people who care about you the most, you know?
And that's the thing, they have your best interest at heart, right? It's not that like they think you're going to fail or whatever, they just don't understand, you know? So the fact that you have so much confidence in self and so much understanding of who you are, who you're meant to be is amazing, right? So like, what was that thought process? Because there's a lot of people whose families, whether it's, you know, they're immigrants or not, like a lot of families are not just welcoming you into this entrepreneurial life, you know? So what did you have to tell yourself, you know, to kind of keep you on it?
You know, I for whatever reason, I've always had this strong faith in myself. And I think it really started my freshman year in college, but like it continued to grow over time. And, you know, just really believing that, you know, there's a bigger purpose. You know, I'm the oldest grandchild, so you know, I've always had like in the back of my mind the thought that I have to take care of other people and help other people, especially back home in Africa. So I knew that having a 9-to-5 would not be the best solution. And I felt that that was a way to not only help myself, but establish, like, you know, just gaining the knowledge to share with others. Because there is definitely an opportunity to evolve and grow, you know, my family back home and, you know, and just the people back home, you know. So I just felt that, you know, having the blessing to let me just go all out and just go for it, you know. So I think those are the things that kind of stuck in the back of my head as to why I'm doing this, you know what I'm saying? So,
would you have any advice for someone else who may be in a similar situation, whose parents are just like, no, like, what is this? Like, that's fun, that's play. Like, now let's, you know, you need something to make money, you know? So, I mean, how can you encourage somebody else?
Have a game plan, you know, like definitely have a game plan. I didn't necessarily put as much time and energy into, okay, what's going to be my financial game plan? You know, I always had a, you know, creative idea of like where I want to go, but not necessarily, okay, how does it make sense? You know, so I think having a game plan, and if people don't agree with it, sticking to it, you know, and just doing it, because eventually they'll come around, you know.
It's true.
Yeah.
And I also think, and I gave this advice before, it's like actually showing them your work.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that so many times can inspire them, and they can see like, my
Absolutely.
child has a talent. Like they genuinely have a gift to
Right.
share with the world, and like, you know,
Yeah.
I don't want to be the one to stunt that.
Exactly.
So I think that's really key. So now, I mean, we've moved on. You, whatever, UGA, you had your conversation with your parents. Now you're years in, like
Right.
you're deep in the game. So we have the two businesses going
Yeah.
on, right?
And yeah, so there was a long period of, you know, still figuring myself out, you know,
Yeah.
when I moved back to Atlanta. You know, obviously, you know, having done parties, that was kind of like the easy transition. But because I was away for 4.5 years, like you come back to Atlanta, it's like you
Yeah.
coming back to a new world.
new
like
scene.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I really had to establish like, you know, relationships within the industry, in the music and entertainment industry. And that took a long time. You know, that took a couple of years of really just building those right relationships and things like that. And, you know, the breakthrough was you know, a new club was opening at the time, Opera Nightclub, which is like the largest club in the city.
Yeah.
And you know, there was a huge like interest from a lot of different promoters to get that venue, and I ended up getting the account.
Oh, wow.
You know, and the owner just took a liking to me. You know, I gave him a proposal, and he said like, I've never had anybody send me an actual like 6-7 page proposal
I mean,
for a party.
You change it up, right?
Yeah.
You really stood out because a
Yeah.
lot of like party promoters,
Yeah.
they're not, they don't have Excel spreadsheets and plans
Exactly.
like going into this stuff.
Yeah. So you know, so that definitely made an impression, and then creating that experience, it led into other things in terms of, you know, I saw a need for like sponsorship, which I hadn't been exposed to before, and so you know, my mentality, even going back to UGA, was if I don't know how to do something, I'm gonna figure it out.
Yeah.
That's something about me that I've always done. So you know, I do my own graphics. I do, you know, I build my own websites.
Yeah.
You know, I throw my own parties. Like it's always been like,
All you.
just figure it out. You know. Sometimes it's to a fault, you know, because, you know, it's great to have a team around you to help you. And so, and so, you know, really like when I got exposed to the need for like sponsorship, that led me to really gaining information and learning about the industry in terms of sponsorship endorsement. And I got an opportunity to work with this lady named Shadrika, who had been doing a lot of major deals with like Queen Latifah and Nelly and a few other people and some major brands. And, you know, working with her, I brought her, you know, a deal with Drake and AT&T,
Oh, cool.
which was you know, like a huge deal for me because
Yeah.
you know, having
I mean,
just,
that's a huge deal for most people. Drake.
it is, yeah.
AT&T,
And this is
yeah.
when he was a new artist. You know, So Far Gone was a mixtape that was out, and it ended up being like a $1.3 million deal. And you know, then that's when I realized, okay, I really want to be in the marketing space.
Yeah.
But you know, and I now became like this one-man agency, which took me to the next level, you know, next phase in my life, and just
Right.
figuring out that whole agency life and marketing, and you know, so it's been over the last 10 years or so, it has really been a journey of ups and downs and
Yeah.
learning things. You know, I've definitely learned things from the positive and the negative, but it hasn't been a straight line experience where
No,
it's like, you
never.
know, none of that. So, fast forward to now, you know, with the Cool Kids and Popular, you know, Popular was really a combination of just my experience producing events and just seeing how, you know, after working with certain corporate brands and the needs that they have, and just, you know, just my background in technology, Popular is kind of like a culmination of all my skill sets and experiences
Right.
and you know, just knowledge that I've gained, and you know, just seeing a need for like, what's the next phase of my life? You know, how do I want to really, you know, not only position myself and really showcase who I really am. You know, for a long time I didn't really utilize my technology background,
Right.
and I just, you know, it just kind of hit me like,
I love how all this, like, it still came back. Like,
Yeah,
it still
definitely.
intersects for you.
absolutely. So, you know, as more and more people started getting into the whole app building stuff, and I'm like, why haven't I been doing that? Like,
Yeah.
it's crazy, you
Yeah.
know? Because, you know, I remember back in high school, I used to just draw these like apps. It wasn't called, it's called application, but not in the way that people know it now.
Yeah.
So I used to have all these ideas. Like I had like this iTunes idea before iTunes came out in my notebook, and just I lost that. And then I fast forward to like a few, 10 years later after college, I kind of wanted to bring all those sides of me together.
Right.
So Poplar was the concept for that.
I love it. I love it. Well, I mean, there's so many exciting things that this is going to spawn, into. And so I always like to ask, like, who is your Virginia, right? And so that probably makes no sense for you now. You're like, Virginia, huh? Who is that? So Virginia is my mother, right?
Okay.
And so, like I said, I was very thankful that when I said I wanted to be an entrepreneur, she was there like supporting me and like backing me 100%, right?
Right.
And so for people who may not have, 100% family support right off, like who did you find that was your Virginia to kind of like motivate you and keep you like,
right.
keep you going?
It's always been like along the way, like different people that I would connect with, just friends that I had, I've had over the years that, we thought alike and we were, doing similar things and, just depending on each other. Like I think initially after college, were my cousins. Like we one of my cousins rapped, so we all three like bonded through there, and that was kind of like the support
Because again,
system.
rappers get ostracized too. Like
They do.
rappers, entrepreneurs are all in like the same boat.
Absolutely. And we had small success. Like we ended up on the radio, and all that. So that was a cool experience. And then, I started to, as I started doing parties, I had different people within that industry that, I really relied on.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say it was necessarily one person.
Yeah.
It was just like at each phase of my life, it was different people that understood me or could relate with me. And so we were able to go through that same journey at the same time.
I love that. I love that. And so lastly, I always ask, because I'm just like music. Music is my life. Like this is kind of what gets me going and keeps me going.
Yeah.
What is that one song lyric that like gets you like, oh, I'm about to kill it. Like I'm about to kill this day, whatever life brings at me.
Yeah. So that song would have to be Bob Marley, Three Little Birds.
Oh, I don't know this.
Oh, you're gonna make me sing it.
Well,
Are you
if
gonna?
you want to sing it, I will welcome you singing. Or you can just give me the lyrics.
So
no
yes.
pressure.
So the song is "Don't Worry About a Thing."
Oh,
because every
you
little
think
thing
you're gonna be all right?
is gonna be all
Actually,
right.
I do know that song.
That's that song to me just speaks to the simplicity of life, and like when you wake up every day, the sun is rising, and all those things that we overlook a lot of times, and we kind of get caught up in the want to close a deal or do X, Y, Z, want to pay your bills. But I think when you bring it back to just the essence of like, you're still blessed. There's still so many things to be thankful for. So I always go back to that song for inspiration.
I love that. I remember a quote from Tony Robbins, and he was saying, like, yeah, I could like think about my blessings, like having a jet and all this other stuff. He was like, but you really have to like take joy in the simple things, like the wind, like breath, like
Exactly.
if you get so caught up in like the big things, like you really lose focus of life. So I do love that. Don't worry, be happy.
Yeah.
Everything's gonna be all right. And I do know that Bob Marley song, so if anyone's judging me right now, I just didn't know the name. But anyway, so thank you, Rufin.
Thank you for
I
having
think
me.
you have an amazing story, a lot of courage,
I appreciate it.
for sure. And I'm excited to see where you go next. So how can people find you?
So I'm heavily on Instagram.
Okay.
So go big RUF.
Okay.
That's my hashtag, my handle. And then in terms of like from a business standpoint, the Cool Kids is an agency I have with 2 other people. So coolkidsforever.com. That's our website. So they can find out about what we're doing, what we got going on.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.